Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in internet shitlords, and today I'm going to talk about a very interesting suggestion that has been made. But before that, I wanted to mention that last night we had inappropriate characters. So be sure, if you didn't check it out, to now go to the Inappropriate Characters channel and check out the live stream from last night. It was very good. It was a Halloween-themed live stream. We had a lot of interesting discussion about the nature of horror and horror RPGs and about whether Cthulhu has jumped the shark. And then, on top of that, you can go to Diversity and Dragons and watch the live stream after party for Inappropriate Characters, where myself, Ryan, and Double D were having some, and Ironcaster actually joined us, having some very interesting discussions on maybe an even deeper level, right? You could tell that by that time, the atmosphere had moved to a heady philosophical atmosphere. But yeah, check all those out. One thing that I discovered, to my surprise, some of you might have seen that a while back, about 20 days ago, I did a video about when did the wussification of Dungeons and Dragons begin. I found out, to my surprise, in the last night when we were doing Inappropriate Characters, that no less than 3 mid-level YouTubers did a response to that video, and not one of the 3 bothered to point it out to me. And in fact, they must have, to some degree, made a point of not making it easy for me to see it, because I didn't, it's been 20 days ago and I didn't have any idea. I was very surprised by that, frankly, if you're going to, maybe if you're going to do like an absolute diss track, right, where all you're doing is crapping on everything I say and declaring that I'm an awful person and you have a zero content video, it might not be worth your while to even bring it up with me. But don't assume I'm going to notice your video if you do a video in response to me, right? Like, if you want me to see it, you probably should tell me, because there's a very good chance you're not important enough for me to be watching your channel, right? There are a few people whose channels I watch fairly religiously, but for the most part, you probably want to give me notification if you really want to, if you really want Senpai to notice you, So that's all the introductory stuff. Now, getting to the subject of the night. So you will see the question is the future of the D&D hobby found in the trans people of color demographic? Let's put it that way, because Polygon believes that's the case, right? And they make this argument about the fact that at this moment there is a, did you guys, I don't know if you guys knew this, right? But there's apparently a live streaming show that has blown away everybody's understanding of what D&D is. It's way ahead of the curve, right? That's what Polygon has said. While D&D reckons with its racist past, this actual play is way ahead of the curve. And so, I had no idea. I didn't realize that the future, I guess Kyle Brink, he called it, right? The future of the hobby is trans people of color, So this is the argument that they're making. You guys will remember that we had, not too long ago, Kyle Brinks, one of the executives at Wizards of the Coast, had declared that the hobby is now no longer, about white guys, and that, in fact, white guys can't leave D&D soon enough. He has said this, and he stuck by it ever since, and he never got fired or anything, so it must be true. And now Polygon is confirming with us that it is, in fact, true, right? Let me read to you a little bit. It starts with this kind of introduction about how, it's the final boss fight, and everyone at the table is crying because of how they're handling a game-changing moment between their character, one of the player characters, and the season's big bad. And they try to use their personal relationship to talk down the big bad so that she won't do whatever she's going to do instead of launching an attack. This is just one of dozens of moments from the Transplanar RPG that set it aside from other actual play shows. At the end of 2019, Transplanar RPG game master and creative producer Connie Chang, you might be familiar with that name, who uses she, he, they pronouns, very important for Polygon to note that, made a New Year's resolution, start a Dungeons & Dragons podcast. Initially intended to be an in-person campaign out of Minneapolis, what became the first Transplanar RPG arc, The Second Stranger, instead debuted on Twitch on 2021 for the platform's ease of use and access. Billed as an all-transgender, people of color-led fantasy, dark fantasy TTRPG set in an original, non-colonial, anti-Orientalist multiverse. It's grown into an actual play series with a tight-knit community of fans. So just to remind you who Connie Chang is. So Connie Chang is somebody who has made a career, essentially, of talking about how racist gamers are and how racist D&D is and how everything is racist and colonialist and Orientalist. And other than that, she seems to have no discernible talent. However, she is constantly being held up by all kinds of leftist media. I mean, she's appeared on, she's been, obviously they're making Polygon articles about her. She's appeared on NPR. She's won an Ennie for in fact, this very game that they're talking about, this very live stream that they're talking about, best RPG live stream Ennie, right? Because that shows how totally not rigged the Ennies are. She's brutally criticized Wizards of the Coast, for which Wizards of the Coast has praised her. That's funny, isn't it? So the Transplanar RPG is currently in its second main campaign on Saturdays on Twitch, with each live show split into 2 podcast episodes released the following Tuesday and Thursday. The series started with D&D and has now moved on to a complete 16-episode miniseries using Chang's own God Killer system. I have no idea what the God Killer system is, but let's take a look. Oh, it's powered by the apocalypse. Of course it is, because anything ridiculously fart-smellingly woke is going to be powered by the apocalypse. Apparently that's a one-person game, though. Like, her game, according to the description here, God Killer is a game for one player and the DM, who is God, and then you have to kill God, apparently. Okay. I guess she must have modified it for a group. I don't know. The new campaign, I know she doesn't have just one player. I've looked. There's more than one player, so I don't know what this is about. But the new campaign, the Chaos Protocol, will use a different system for each arc, starting with the Wild Sea by Mystery. I love how they talk about these as though, like, these are games everybody knows about. I mean, everybody knows God Killer and the Wild Sea. So the Wild Sea, which is like, it costs like $50 or something. That's the standard edition. $50 for the standard edition. Amazing. Some 300 years ago, the empire of the world were toppled by a wave of fast-growing greenery. Now chainsaw-driven ships cut their way through treetop waves. You're a wild sailor. Humanity's weathered descendants. It's a tabletop role-playing game by Quillhound Studios for 2d6 players, inspired by blah, blah, blah. Inspired by 3 things that nobody's ever heard of. The Wild Sea uses a narrative, fiction-first, D6 dice pool system. So this is the future. This is the future of Dungeons & Dragons, actually. Is people not playing Dungeons & Dragons, playing, like, ridiculous, pretentious story games instead of Dungeons & Dragons. That's the future. That might be true. We don't know yet. Let's see here. So, although Transplanar RPG started as a D&D show, Chang used their education in screenwriting and critical race studies. What did you do with your life? Oh, screenwriting and critical race studies. To immediately dismantle most of the core concepts of Wizards of the Coast's most infamous rule set. Until recently, the system had built-in racial traits and dice modifiers for its various races, and lower intelligence stats for orcs, and a propensity towards evil for dark-skinned drow, which are just a type of elf. The drows did nothing wrong, people. They didn't do nothing. This is incredible. Just incredible. The Polygon has absolutely no shame. Dungeons & Dragons players of Wizards of the Coast has come under significant fire in the past few years for perpetuating racist stereotypes and imagery in a fantasy world, in particular, anti-blackness. Last year, the highly anticipated 5th edition release of Spelljammer included a race creating in 1982 called the Hadozi, formerly enslaved simian creatures with art that evoked racist minstrel shows. You're half right, Polygon. They did, in fact, do Spelljammer and didn't have, in fact, have the Hadozi. And the Hadozi did kind of look like racist minstrels. And they did kind of have, you know, a background that suggested, you know, that the slavery elements were quite problematic. The part you got wrong is 1982, because the Hadozi, both in their original appearance and in the original Spelljammer, were not like what the liberals did to the Hadozi in the current edition. They actually made them more of a racist stereotype, I think, in the purpose of trying to make them into some kind of a white liberal's idea, or maybe not even a white liberal's, who knows, a liberal's idea of a liberated, you know, woke black moment or something. They changed the species. The Hadozi were not like that in the original Spelljammer box set. Check out my videos on that if you want more information. This was a step backwards for Wizard, which came out against racism and owned its role in perpetuating it during 2020 Black Lives Matter's protests. Well, you know, I do think that there's been significant racism in Wizards of the Coast, right? For one thing, their entire executive are white, so that's something. And second, they also have said that white people should be driven out of the hobby, which is something too, right? But it seems like at least you can say they're equal opportunity racists. You know, that's something anyway, but my goodness. And they can say they're responsible for whatever racism they have in their hearts all they like, right? To suggest that D&D is racist is a different story. So, following the Spelljammer controversy, Wizards apologized and revised errata for the Hadozi and for Spelljammer. Newer editions feature those revisions, blah, blah, blah. Cultural consultants now play a bigger role in reviewing. This is the thing. You guys will remember this. I did a video about this. Wizards of the Coast, after the whole Hadozi thing, have now committed to the fact that every single word in every book they publish will be reviewed by no less than 3 separate diversity hires that are there to be basically cultural, you know, woke commissars that have to approve every little word, every word that appears in a book 3 times over. That is an incredible commitment that they have made, because it makes it is a ridiculous expense for what is essentially a useless feature. But there you have it. They've done that, and they did that because I'm assuming because they said, well, now nobody will be able to say it's not enough. And here's Polygon saying, no, it's not enough. You know what? The only way for D&D to be good, for the D&D to work, to be right, is for no one to play it. If nobody's playing D&D, and instead in fact, if the only people allowed to play RPGs are transgender people of color on a podcast where they're playing games based on Powered by the Apocalypse, that's perhaps good enough. We'll have to see, because once that happens, obviously, then we'll have to find something wrong with these people too. Even Connie Chang will not be spared eventually. Someday it'll be her turn in the fields as well, you know? So Connie Chang says, the D&D text itself is extremely troubling, and I think there's been a reckoning in the past couple of years from Wizards itself. They're aware, and I think they're trying to change things for the better. But she also notes that Transplanar doesn't stand for many of the decisions and declarations made by the publisher. When it comes to building a world that is non-colonialist, anti-Orientalist, and rooted in an anti-racist understanding of fantasy, you really have to interrogate what fantasy is from the ground up. I'm pretty sure she has no idea what fantasy is, because fundamentally, you know, if she's making these kinds of Marxist arguments, she doesn't understand the nature of myth to begin with. You know, nobody who's a Marxist does. Right? Never mind a postmodernist Marxist, which is clearly what she is. Never mind someone couched in critical theory. The problem with critical theory is that it atomizes everything. And once you've atomized everything, there's no way to understand something holistically. So, you know, very much so, Connie Chang has no idea what she's talking about, or they are talking about, whichever one, he, she, they are talking about, you know. So the Transplanar RPG's Arc Second Stranger is set in Andake, an anti-Orientalist realm based on Asian mythologies. Yeah, again, I'm not sure about Connie Chiang's background. I mean, she's obviously Asian. I've seen her picture. I mean, but I'm pretty sure she's second or third generation Asian. I'm pretty sure she wasn't born outside of the, outside of the West. I don't know how much she speaks, whatever her native language might be. Well, her historical language rather. And I'm guessing that, her ability to research with degrees in, what was it, cultural studies and, what did she do again? Damn it, how did I forget that so fast? That's what happens when I'm doing these articles on idiotic people. Gender theory and critical studies, I think it was, right? Am I remembering that correctly? Anyways, if that's what she studied, she obviously doesn't know how to do the appropriate levels of research to actually learn about a culture. So essentially, she is not qualified to do a game. Like, she's going to say that she's qualified because of her magic blood, right? Because of the skin color that she has and the particular genetics that she have, somehow give her the magical power to be able to accurately depict a culture. But that's not true. We know that's not true. That's just nonsense, right? So whatever she's going to do is going to be based on, tiny snippets of whatever has survived from her family's cultural background in her new world, plus maybe some things she's seen on television and movies, and maybe a couple of books she's read. It'll be the most superficial thing ever, There's no way she could do an Asian setting RPG as good as I can. It's as simple as that. Anyway, so it's then they describe the story. It's about, the gods have disappeared, and then 4 divine heroes have to save the world through sacrifice, and then there's 4 ordinary heroes that also are hanging around for some reason. Apparently according to Polygon, the fans love all 10-player characters who appear in the story. There are so many problems with that declaration, because, it says though fans love well, anyways, they say fans love all 10-player characters who appear in the story. So the first thing is, have we asserted that there are fans? And I'm going to go on to prove that in fact, the answer to all of this, I think at this point, the article's just going into details. So, there's a Yuan T Bard in it, and, there's a lot of queer romance and stuff like that. And Chang says, it's honestly more rewarding to build campaigns with conflict where race is not just a natural, uninterrogated part of the conflict or even a part of the world building, but is specifically critically interrogated and said to everyone above the table and at the table, this is not a part of our story. So, could you imagine how mind-numbingly stupid that would be to actually sit there and experience that, right? To have people say, well, this situation in this game is not about race. And also, though, it means that we have looked at it and declare that it is not about race and therefore is not racist, right? Because if you just don't say anything, you're a racist, right? Because silence is violence. And of course, if you do use race as a topic, you are being exploitative of race as a topic. Yeah. So what you have to do is say, we're not using race, but we have investigated ourselves and we know that we're not using race. And that is how we are pure. This is the argument that this is how the woke want you to run your table. If they could, they would have people with guns to your head to force you to run that way at your table, right? And of course, I mean, if they could get away with it further, they just would, they would just put the gun to your head and shoot, right? So this is what they're, this is the ultimate agenda. But that's still far away for them. But if the day comes where they can arrest you for not interrogating race in every situation, they were certainly going to do it. People like Connie Chiang would be very happy to do that. One of the players says, the content we make is not for everyone. It challenges specifically white audiences in a lot of ways, especially white cis audiences, insofar as the story really unwraps a lot of white puritanical values of good and evil. Yeah, because every non-white culture throughout the world has not believed in good and evil, right? This is definitely something that's a product of your ancestral traditions of not believing in good and evil, as opposed to the fact that you were trained as a postmodernist Marxist and that's where you get your values from, you dipshit. Come on. Yeah. Like if you go, believe me, if you go to Africa or to Asia or to Latin America or to the Middle East, you'll see that every one of those cultures has a very strong notion of what is good and what is evil. And it is, in fact, a hell of a lot stronger than any notions we have left of what are good and what are evil. Because the people that don't believe in good and evil are not non-white people. It's the postmodernist leftists. Those are the people who believe that nothing is true and therefore everything is permitted. You have to have the death of God for that kind of nihilism to exist. And, you know, non-Western cultures have the benefit that to them God isn't dead. There's more nonsense about the campaign. And and I say, okay, here you go. The Translator RPG YouTube channel, in a practical sense, the approach to world building that Connie uses transforms the game into something almost totally detached from stereotypical ideas about what an actual place looks like. Still, Translator RPG references D&D in its branding because it's much more recognizable. Oh, that's good. It's nothing to do with D&D, but they're recognizing it in the branding, and that is how this is the future of D&D. The future of D&D is other people pretending that what they're doing is D&D when it's not, you know, literally. They're trying to name D&D as a way to get more of an audience, right? And, you'll find out in a second about how well that's going. So they say if, one of this Thomas person, one of the players says, if you're not in the TTRPG bubble, you're not going to reach out to a Monster of the Week podcast the same way you might reach out to a D&D podcast. After having built up an audience and delving deeper into how far D&D can take us, it raised another question, like how far can this game push us until it's actually is just becoming a broken cog in the wheel of our story. So they're now exploring new systems, and the community is going along for the ride. I love that they talk about the community like there is a community. Yeah, it's very funny. More nonsense going on. Okay, so here we go. So Translator RPG has grown its platform to 6,500 followers on Twitch and nearly 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. It's gotten public recognition, including a nomination for Best Podcast at this year's Ennie Awards. Oh, I'm sorry, she didn't win. She just got nominated for it. Chang has appeared on Dimension 20 and on the official Dungeons & Dragons Challenge. Remember, that is Chang, this person who has spent the entire career basically accusing D&D of being Nazis. And the response of D&D has been to bring them onto their official channel, you know, to bring Chang onto their official channel. And at the same time, Chang decided to go on the channel for their own benefit, right? In spite of the fact that they were claiming that D&D are basically white supremacists, you know. So that's interesting. They've been interviewed by both the New York Times and NPR, Connie Chang, right? I mean, that's right. That's fair, right? I mean, 10,000 subscribers. My God, that's obviously this is one of the major influences on the gaming hobby, you know, except if you actually go, and here's where we get the answer. So the answer is, are games about trans people of color going to be the future of the hobby? The answer is no. And it's actually a very important question to ask, right? Because the whole argument of the woke movement has been to corporations has been, look, right now you're only catering to straight white males. If instead you make massive changes in your product, in your game, in your comic, in your TV show, in your movie, if you alter the characters, if you change their races, if you destroy certain plot lines, if you declare that things that your current fandom love are actually evil things that should be hated, if you do all this, if you hire the people that are not of this demographic, and you make stories that we tell you to make, then you're going to get all of these people of color and all of these LGBT people and all of these other people who are not the straight white male gamers who are going to come, and you're going to make so much more money because there's so much more of them than there are straight white male gamers. And the companies have listened to this and they've done this, and then nobody came, right? And nobody is ever going to come because that is not what it is for. Even the people saying it know that that's true because they themselves would never do this. Connie Chang would never play D&D, right? They're doing this as an exercise to destroy D&D. They have no interest in actually playing it. They would never bother with that, right? So we know that it's not true. But here we have, thanks to Connie Chang, we have definitive proof that it is not true. That's the really great thing about this video, is that there is definitive, it provides absolute proof. Because here's Connie Chang with 10,000 followers on YouTube. And if you go and look, by the way, I have 7,000 and some followers on YouTube, right? So her channel, in terms of followers, appears to be bigger than mine, right? If you go to her YouTube channel and look at her videos, or his videos or their videos, apparently they're all interchangeable for Connie, compare them to mine, take a look at the number of people that viewed the videos that actually are there, right? So because those 10,000 could be anything. They could be just random subscriptions. They could be bots. They could be a whole bunch of leftists that signed up as a virtue signal that they can say, oh, yes, I'm subscribed to Connie Chang's channel, right? But they never actually watch it, apparently. Because like my videos, all of my videos make multiple times more views than hers, okay? My worst videos are usually my review videos. I just did a video review of the Fiends of Yankton. And that video, after enough time that you could pretty much call it, has gotten about 890 views, something like that, right? So it's shy of 4 figures. It's a high 3 figures. That's the lowest my videos tend to get. And for the highest, well, there are some, not counting a couple of videos that got like ridiculously higher than that, right? There are a couple of videos of mine that have just done in the tens of thousands, like, and higher, but because of particular viral phenomenon or whatever. My videos average somewhere typically, apart from the review videos, they average about between 1,500 and 4,000 views. Okay. And I have 3,000 less followers than Connie Chang. If you go to Connie Chang's video, all these this show that Polygon has described as if it is like got a monumental fan following and is being incredibly influential on our hobby, this show sometimes struggles to reach 3 figures. There are episodes that only have like 85, 86 views. And then like the most that they get, at least in recent times, if you look at the recent videos, the most that they're getting is like maybe up to close to 300, right? So they're in the low 3-figure range. That's how unpopular this is. That's how few people give a 2-penny crap about this, right? They're just not interested. This is not the future of D&D. And people who think it's the future of D&D are going to end up being ruined by that false belief, because there's only so long you can keep up this bubble of illusion. Wizards of the Coast is either going to change or it's going to be buried by this ridiculous fantasy that it has, that they have been sold as a bill of goods by the woke left. And so these people have nobody that actually likes them, but among themselves, they manage to promote. Someone like Connie Chang has been in the New York Times and in NPR and can't get together 500 people to watch her show. That's how shit she absolutely is, how crappy her ideas are. But the left institutions have been instructed to promote her, and so they will. That's the problem. That's what we're fighting against. And so, this is why you have to respond to something like this Polygon article. This Polygon article is essentially a kind of totalitarian propaganda. It's telling you to believe that the sun rises in the west, right? It's demanding that you do, and that if you don't, then you're an enemy of the people, you know, and you will be hunted. Because they are demanding that you believe that Connie Chiang is an important and influential person, when the actual evidence is that outside of the propaganda circles of the left, she is not. She has no relevance whatsoever. But they want to create that illusion to fool people into thinking that the ideas that this despicable human being has must be followed in lieu of the traditions of our hobby. And that's what I'm standing up against today. Okay. So I guess that's basically it. The important thing is that we have to, you know, make a point of mocking Connie Chiang. It's very important, and Polygon and everybody who is trying to push forward what is essentially an act of fraud, right? This is fraud, what Polygon is doing. It's a misrepresentation that is trying to give a fake impression of something, you know? So this is what has to be displayed. You know, you have to expose it, and you have to call it, and you have to report it, right? So please share this video everywhere that you can. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. All of that is very important. Your ongoing effort in this is very important, and your support. And I thank everybody who has been enormously supportive of me so far. If you like the cut of my jib and you want to support me, well, you know, nowadays apparently you can do super thanks. But if you want to get something in return for your support, you could always check out my products, my OSR games, all of which I guarantee you are actually more played than anything Connie Chiang has been involved in. Sword and Caravan, the Star Adventure, or source books like, well, the Sword and Caravan is a setting book. Gonzo Fantasy Companion, which is a complete set of generators and special rules to make your fantasy setting more Gonzo, to make it more weird fantasy, to add elements of science fantasy and strange fantasy. And it's got all kinds of amazing tables in it and material that you can use to weird up sections or the whole of your game. And check out all my other products. Newest book, still haven't got my copy here to show you, but it's is Heroes and Villains of the Silk Road. 120 pages of the biographies of major historical figures in the setting of Sword and Caravan, their stats, rules on the assassins, an expanded chronology with adventure cues, and also some crazy, amazing high-tech weapons of the Song Dynasty. And that's about everything for today. Currently smoking. This is a Neerup egg plus Argento roots.